Let's take a look at how credit cards work. We're going to figure out an average daily balance, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But let's just look at someone's credit card transactions. Here's a person who did not pay off their credit card last month. They carried forward a balance of $2,000. Not a good idea. But they did it. And now what we have to do is figure out what their balance was on each of these days. Now obviously in the real world we can have multiple transactions on a given day, right? We can go to several places and charge things. We could make a couple of payments. We could take a cash advance. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to limit our problems to one transaction per day. So this person, the billing cycle starts on 9/16, and they say, oh man, I need to pay that off a little bit. So they make a $60 payment on the 19th. When we make a payment on a credit card, does our balance go up or down? It would go down, wouldn't it? So we would be subtracting this $60 payment from $2,000. After we make that $60 payment, we would owe $2,000 minus $60, we would owe $1,940. $2,000 minus the $60 payment. How's that feel? All right, now, I guess we were itching to buy something, and so we went out and spent $1,500. That's not a good ratio. Pay $60 and charge $1,500. We're not going to pay it off very fast that way. But a charge makes it go up or down. Makes the balance go up. Now we owe more. So we're going to add this $1,500 to our current balance. So $1,940 plus $1,500, $3,440. Does that look right? And now we make another $60 payment. Balance go up or down? Down when we make a payment. So we subtract $3,380. Does that look right? Now, on the 7th, we make a cash advance. Does your balance go up or down? Balance goes up, doesn't it? So we add that $70. $3,450, does that look right? Now, here's what we're going to do. This is a 30-day billing cycle. I'm going to encourage you to, before you do anything else, there's a number of things we have to do, and it kind of doesn't matter what order we do them in. So what I did here first was just say, what's my daily balance after each of these transactions? Okay, so I subtracted payments, I added charges and cash advances. By the way, a cash advance is worse than a charge, isn't it? Financially. Because, number one, there's no grace period on a cash advance. Any other charge, you pay it off in full at the end of the month and you don't have to pay any interest on it. You get 25 days after the billing cycle ends to make your payment in full, and you don't have to pay any interest for the previous 6 weeks. But when you get a cash advance, they charge you interest from the day you get it. And you have to pay everything else off first before they'll let you pay off the cash advance, which is usually a higher rate than regular charges. And thirdly, there's a transaction fee, isn't there? So you're spending, it may only be $2 or $3, but it's a fee for 0 time that you got to borrow this. That's mathematically, that's an infinitely high interest rate, because you're paying a fee and you didn't get any time for that money. So cash advances are not the worst way to borrow money, but they're not a good way to do it. All right, now, here's what we want to do. The second thing I would urge you to do is let's find out what day the billing cycle ends. What day does the billing cycle end? And the billing cycle, we have to look at the problem, because sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's 28 days, sometimes it's 33 days if there was a holiday, so just whatever the problem says. If we start on the 16th of September, we want to find out what's 30 days after that. Well, how many days are in September? It's either 30 or 31. It's 30, isn't it? So 30 days from September 16th would be October 16th, same day next month, because we got 30 days this month. So October 16th is when this billing cycle ends. Now the reason I suggest you do this is because it'll give you a checkpoint in a minute to make sure you get your days right. Now, here's how an average daily balance works. This is a weighted average, just like our GPA was. A weighted average, just like our GPA. Now, the credit card company might want to say, we're going to charge you interest on $34.40 because that was your highest balance and that'll give us the most money. We'd say, well, that's not fair. I had lower balances a lot. Why don't you charge me interest on $19.40 for the month? And they'd say, well, that's not fair. To us, you had higher balances. So here's what they do. They say, how long did each balance stay that way? In other words, if a balance stayed that way a long time, it's going to carry more weight in the average than if it stayed that way a short time. And that makes sense. So what we do is we look at these dates and we say, how long did this $2,000 balance stay there before we made this payment to change it? It's 19 minus 16. It stayed that way for 3 days, didn't it? And notice that when we subtract these dates, the answer goes on the upper line. It's the 2,000 that stayed there for 3 days. It's not the 1940 that stayed there for 3 days. All right? It's this balance that started on the 16th that stayed there for 3 days. Now, how long did this second balance stay there before we made that big charge? 30 minus 19, it stayed there 11 days, didn't it? And this next one, that's the last day of the month. So 3 days later, October 3rd. And this next one, 7 minus 3, it stayed there 4 days. And then this balance stayed there till the cycle ended. Okay? That's why I suggest putting that date there at the end so you can figure out how many days this last balance stayed there. So 16 minus 7 is 9. And now we have a way to check ourselves. Because we figured out this date and subtracted and got that answer, now we can add these and they should total 30. That gives us a way to check it. If we do it the way the book says, where you just total these and then subtract it from 30, if you made a mistake here, you won't catch it. Right, so that should total 30, does it? Looks like it does. 30 days. Bless you. All right, how's everybody so far? We figure out our balance on each day that we have a transaction. Then we figure out how many days that balance stayed that way. Now, technically, we could be charged 3 days worth of interest on $2,000 and 11 days worth of interest on $19.40. They could do it by the day. But it is so close doing it that way as it is to doing an average monthly balance, weighted average, that it's easier to do it this way. It's just like when we talked about compounding monthly versus compounding daily. It sounds like the daily would be a lot better, earn you more interest, but it's so close to monthly that it's almost not even worth the trouble to figure it out. So here's what we do. We do exactly what we did in a grade point. We say this $2,000 balance, this value has this much weight. So we multiply the values times the weights. We multiply the balances times the number of days they were there. All right. So multiply across. I'm going to have to refer to my calculator on this one. We multiply each balance